Better late than never, I am bringing you a short review on the Google Pixel 6 and why, unfortunately, after 30 days of use, I did have to send it back. There were a couple glaring issues that I found after a month's worth of use that I really feel did not give the performance and experience that I was hoping for with the Google Pixel 6. I will say I do have a little bit of Samsung bias, my most recent purchase being the Samsung S10, which I hung on to for a couple years. After hearing a lot of the hype at the end of last year, I did decide to buy the Google Pixel 6 during the holiday season, and thanks to Google's extended return program, I was able to use it for a full month and unfortunately find that those issues were not good enough to keep the Google Pixel 6 in my hands. So let's talk about some of those problems I ran into and try and give me a little bit of feedback at the end of this video. Feel free to comment, give me your opinion, we'll talk it out. Let's get started. First things first, the biggest issue I had with this phone was unfortunately with the camera. Now, I know there were several features that were marketed to the hilt, with the first one being the software that Google uses to give you an option to select which photo you want, to find one that maybe finds one without you blinking. It also has the magic eraser tool, which was nice, but really just Google's version of the spot healing brush like in Photoshop. I wasn't super impressed with that. But back to the camera. I really found that it was performing well in most situations, low light situations, but the weak spot, and this is mentioned on a couple other YouTube videos and Reddit posts, when you get your camera really close to your subject, the bokeh effect unfortunately would provide blurring in areas where you might not want it. People that like to use their phone to capture pictures of receipts or words or things up close, like myself, I'm a tattoo artist. I've been tattooing for 8 years now, and I like to use my phone to capture pictures of my work. I would manually zoom. I like to call it manually zoom. I'd get my phone really close to the tattoo that I want to take a picture of, and unfortunately, as I'll show you here, there was a ring or haze in areas where I didn't want it to be. Some of the proposed fixes from different users online were to use the zoom mode and step away from your subject and zoom in. However, coming from the Samsung experience, like I said, I do have a little bit of a bias there. I feel like Samsung's camera isn't great, it's just average, but I feel like for most situations it does a pretty good job. And for my job, I want to be able to capture all of what I'm looking at. I don't want to have just a pinpoint right in the middle with all of the enhancements around it to focus in kind of like a portrait mode shot. That just doesn't work for me. And Google, it took a risk going with the larger sensor in this phone, but the combo of that sensor and the lens, I'm not a photography guru, but it has a permanent bokeh effect if you're zooming in manually, like I said. So if you're putting your phone close to the objects that you want to take a picture of, this might not be the best bet for you, and is unfortunately one of the reasons why I had to send it back. That's issue one. Let's talk a little bit more of the smaller things that bugged me and unfortunately sent me back to Samsung. I feel like Google is always on the edge. They're always testing new innovations, software, hardware, and that's a good thing. I feel like Apple is kind of waiting in the wings to see what other people do and then maybe refine it and tweak it and make it perfect. But I can respect people trying out new innovative things like that. So I'll be waiting to see what Google has to offer here this next year. And a brief interjection, since we are talking about pictures, I didn't want to forget to tell you that I did notice, unfortunately, after capturing a picture, if you go to the gallery to view it immediately, you'll often see this blurred rendering that might take a second or two to see your picture. A little bit of a user experience issue. I found that if you were to pinch zoom, you could get that to go away faster, but still I would almost rather see a scroll bar or something showing, hey, this is processing, give us a second, or just make it snappier, make it happen faster. So that is a minor issue with the Google Pixel phones. I think across the line, my wife has the Pixel 3a XL, and her phone still does this too. So I know that phone is super old. I need to convince her to upgrade. But anyways, I know that is a Pixel thing. So unfortunately, it still does impact this phone. With the multi-camera setup on the Pixel 6, it is nice to see those quick options in the camera app where you can swap between 1, 2, and 0.7 times. However, those options compared to the Samsung are not as useful. I would prefer to see, like on my S10, they had a 0.5, a 1, and a 3 times. Those are all the quick options you could snap to. I feel like 0.7 and 2 on the Pixel 6, they don't give you enough range. I would rather see half of what I'm looking at or a lot more using that telephoto lens to see a little bit further away. So I think 3 to 4 times is more acceptable than just 2. That's just kind of a personal gripe complaint, but it was a factor in me returning the phone, so I thought I would include it. Okay, so when you spend several $100s for a phone, especially one that is touted as a flagship phone, in this day and age, you would assume that it would come with Face ID. Unfortunately, Google has decided to not include this with the Pixel 6, and like I said, coming from the S10, even though it is a few years old, the Face ID is a nice feature. If you are in a situation where you have gloves on or you just want to unlock your phone the lazy way and just look at it, I know Apple users out there, they're all, if you want to just look at your phone and open it, that's a nice feature to have, and Google choosing not to have it on this phone, I think was a step back. So unfortunately, that was factor number 2 as to why I sent the Pixel back. So Google is pretty famous for having a low bloatware system. Unfortunately, it's not perfect. One issue being I don't really like that Google has a permanent search bar on their home screen. I think that's a little bit intrusive. I know you have the assistant, you can say, hey Google, or you can click the power button and hold that down and get the assistant to help you. I think the search bar is a little bit outdated and it's kind of in the way. I'd rather have maybe a few more apps that I can access on my screen. So that was a faux pas on Google's part. So thankfully, maybe by buying the Pixel 6 instead of the Pixel 6 Pro, I dodged a bullet by having a fairly bug-free experience. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't as bad as some of the stuff I was reading out there. Various articles and posts saying that apps were force crashing or the camera was crashing, things like that. One issue I did have, though, was with the battery. It was pretty good for most uses and situations, but I noticed as the battery slowly got towards the 10% mark, where you start to be kind of concerned, like, oh, I need to plug my phone in, it would go from that small percentage to 0 pretty fast, almost annoyingly fast. So that final bit of battery did not last long. I don't know if it was optimized or saved correctly, but yeah, it would go from low to off really fast, and that was kind of a bummer. So the professionalism from Google was very much appreciated. I feel like you were thoroughly able to experience all they had to offer without any serious drawbacks. I feel like their extended return policy over the holidays especially was awesome. I really appreciated that. 15 days isn't bad, but if you can get a full month to use a device and really figure out if it's for you, that's a nice feature, and I really commend Google for doing that. Again, like I said, the return process was fantastic. They provided a return label and even exchanging my trade-in phone. The process was super smooth. I would definitely try a Pixel again in the future. Obviously, I might wait a little bit and see what other people think, get some real simple reviews before I dive in again. But I feel like my Google experience was a promising one, and I hope to try out another one of their devices here in the future. Thanks for checking out my channel. I always appreciate it. Feel free to like or subscribe, send me a comment, an opinion. I do like reading over those. I know I might seem like a little bit of a fanboy leaning towards Samsung, and maybe honestly I am. I try to go with what device really suits me, and I try to keep an open mind. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.